What happens when the mightiest empire in the world meets a mind it cannot predict? This is the story of Hannibal Barca, the man who crossed the Alps with elephants, outwitted Roman legions, and redefined military genius forever. In this video, we uncover what made Hannibal's tactics not just brilliant, but unstoppable. Stage for what made Hannibal's rise so extraordinary. The First Punic War had ended with Rome victorious, but not without cost. Carthage was defeated, and Rome's power only grew in the Mediterranean. But in Carthage, a bitter resentment brewed. The loss was more than just territorial. It was an insult to Carthaginian pride. And from that resentment, the seeds of vengeance were planted in the mind of a young Hannibal Barca. Hannibal's father, Hamilcar, a Carthaginian general, had fought fiercely against Rome during the First Punic War. After the defeat, Hamilcar made a vow. He swore to teach his son to hate Rome. And from an early age, Hannibal was trained in the art of war and tactics, absorbing his father's vision for revenge. This deep-rooted hatred would drive Hannibal's every move during the Second Punic War. The Second Punic War began in 218 BCE, when Hannibal boldly marched his army, including war elephants, towards Italy, crossing the Pyrenees and setting his sights on the heart of the Roman Empire. The Romans were unprepared for this audacious move. They thought Hannibal would march directly toward them through Spain, but instead, he chose the unexpected route through the treacherous Alps. Imagine this: Hannibal leading his troops, elephants and horses, with no maps, trekking through icy, unforgiving mountain passes. It's impossible to overstate the difficulty of this task. The Alps were a natural barrier Rome had never considered vulnerable. The soldiers faced freezing temperatures, rugged terrain, and violent resistance from hostile tribes along the way. Despite these obstacles, Hannibal's leadership was paramount. He pushed forward relentlessly, managing to keep his army together even when morale was at its lowest. The sight of elephants trudging through the snow and mist of the Alps was not just a logistical marvel, it was psychological warfare in action. Rome had never even considered an attack from this direction. They had fortified the southern front, but the north, the mountain passes, seemed impossible to cross. But Hannibal, with his cunning and boldness, turned that same impossibility into his greatest weapon. Livy, the Roman historian, wrote, "No one could imagine that the Romans would be caught off guard by an invasion of this magnitude." Hannibal's genius wasn't just about boldness, it was about mastery of the battlefield. Let's dive into some of his most iconic battles and see what made his tactics so effective. The Battle of Trebia is where Hannibal's strategic brilliance first shone on Italian soil. The Romans, confident in their strength, marched towards him, unaware of the trap he had set. Hannibal took advantage of the harsh winter conditions. He hid his forces in the icy river, positioning them strategically along the banks. As the Romans advanced, they were lured into a vulnerable position, and the battle began. Hannibal's cavalry, positioned on the flanks, attacked the Roman forces from both sides, enveloping them and driving them into the freezing river. The Romans had no chance to retreat. The Battle of Lake Trasimene was one of the largest and most devastating ambushes in military history. Hannibal used the natural cover of the mist and the terrain to his advantage. His army hid along the shores of the lake, waiting for the Roman forces to advance. As the Romans marched into the valley, they were surrounded on three sides by Hannibal's army, effectively trapping them. The Romans, caught completely by surprise, were slaughtered. In the chaos, Hannibal's forces killed nearly 15,000 Roman soldiers, one of the greatest tactical ambushes of ancient warfare. Now we come to Hannibal's crowning achievement, the Battle of Cannae. This battle would go down in history as one of the most flawless examples of tactical warfare. Hannibal faced a Roman army nearly double his size, about 80,000 men compared to his 50,000. The Romans, confident in their superiority, advanced recklessly. Hannibal, however, had planned for this moment. He used the technique of double envelopment, drawing back his center to form a concave shape. As the Romans pushed forward, they became increasingly surrounded. The result was utter devastation for Rome. Tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed in one of the most crushing defeats the empire ever suffered. Livy famously wrote, "Never before had so many Romans died in a single day of war." Hannibal's ability to manipulate terrain and timing was unmatched. Hannibal's success on the battlefield wasn't just about his tactics, it was about his mind. A mind that was as unpredictable as it was brilliant. Hannibal turned the very terrain into a weapon. The Alps, rivers, mountains, and forests all became tools in his strategic arsenal. He used deception, surprise, and the element of the unknown to his advantage. Hannibal never repeated the same trick. He constantly adapted and kept his enemies guessing. Hannibal understood the importance of fear and morale. He used his presence to strike terror into the hearts of Romans and their allies. His army was unpredictable and relentless, and his campaigns were often aimed at psychological warfare. Hannibal attempted to turn Rome's allies in Italy against them, offering them the chance to side with Carthage in exchange for autonomy. Though ultimately unsuccessful, his ability to sway loyalty demonstrated his understanding of the political dimension of war. One of the most remarkable aspects of Hannibal's campaigns was his ability to inspire loyalty. His men followed him through the harshest conditions, enduring starvation, battle, and the coldest of winters. Hannibal shared their hardships, ate with them, and led by example. This leadership was key to his ability to maintain a strong, unified force in the face of overwhelming odds. The elephants weren't just for battle, they became symbols of Hannibal's unpredictable nature and his defiance of Roman expectations. They were a visual representation of his larger-than-life persona, an embodiment of his willingness to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. Despite his brilliance, Hannibal faced insurmountable challenges. His most significant flaw was a lack of strategic support from Carthage. While Hannibal won battle after battle in Italy, he never had the resources to decisively end the war. The Carthaginian Senate was hesitant to send reinforcements, forcing Hannibal to operate with limited manpower and supplies. Ultimately, the Romans learned from their mistakes. Scipio Africanus, a Roman general, studied Hannibal's tactics and adapted them to defeat him. In 202 BCE, Scipio defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama, ending the Second Punic War in Rome's favor. Hannibal wasn't just a general, he was a force of nature, a military genius whose tactics would influence future generations of commanders, including Napoleon, Patton, and even modern military strategists. His legacy is one of defiance, brilliance, and innovation. Though defeated in the end, Hannibal's military philosophy shaped the art of war for centuries to come. His strategies were nearly impossible to counter, not because they were flawless, but because he fought on his own terms, terms that no one had expected. Hannibal didn't conquer Rome, but he conquered history. His battles still echo across time, reminding us that strategy, courage, and brilliance can shake even the greatest empires. Hannibal didn't conquer Rome, but he conquered history. His battles still echo across time, reminding us that strategy, courage, and brilliance can shake even the greatest empires. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, subscribe, and comment below. Which of Hannibal's battles do you think was the most brilliant? Your thoughts could shape the next chapter of history.